Dobré ráno, Brno. I těm, kteří nejste v Brně, ale na streamu, dovolte mi, abych vás přivítal na dalším ročníku konference BRNO INDUSTRY 4.0. Už dokonce 7. ročníku konference, která sdružuje témata, která mi jsou blízká a věřím, že jsou blízká i vám, a to ty, které přináší modernizaci průmyslu. Tuto konferenci BRNO INDUSTRY 4.0 tradičně organizuje Industry Cluster 4.0 společně s regionální hospodářskou komorou Brno, a to v rámci aktivit Enterprise Europe Network. Já jsem rád, že se znovu můžeme setkat na půdě této konference a je mi velkou ctí, že jsem byl nominován, abych vás provedl dnešním programem. Pro formality mé jméno je Lukáš Smelík a jak jsem řekl, mou milou povinností je pouze předávat slovo těm, kteří mají ty zajímavé myšlenky pro vás připraveny. Na samotný úvod mi dovolte několik organizačních pokynů, jak směrem k vám do sálu, tak všem, kdo nás sledují na streamu. Pokud byste měli jakoukoliv potřebu nám něco říct, tak využijte, ať už to na streamu nějak chatu, nebo tady poprosím u registrace, kterou jste všichni prošli, cokoliv bude možné, tak organizační tým určitě zvládne vyřešit. Z veškerého tohoto setkání je dostupný také záznam, takže využívejte všech platform, které tady na konferenci jsou připraveny, a to hlavně té networkingové, protože o čem by to dneska mělo být, to je o výměně zkušeností, ať už si je předáte jakoukoliv formou tady na pódiu, v předsálí, během výstav. Tato konference by samozřejmě nebyla možná ani za podpory partnerů, tak mi dovolte, abych jménem organizátorů těmto partnerům poděkoval, jmenovitě hlavním partnerům společnostem BNR, Siemens a Beckhoff.
Siemens and Beckhoff, these are the main partners and also other partners who enabled us to meet here. I think that the greatest thank goes to the Industry Cluster 4.0, which is located here in Brno. That's why the name Brno. But not all of us are from Brno, but what Brno has managed was to concentrate a lot of interesting topics for modern industry. And I'd like to thank the organizers for this, because these topics are very familiar and close to me, and what we have been succeeding in during this conference has been very, very beneficial for everybody. I would also ask the chief of Industry Cluster 4.0, Tomáš Kubala, to say a few words about this conference and our meeting. So I'd like to pass the floor to Tomáš Kubala. Thank you. Everything has been said here, but I'd like to welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, once again, because 2 unfortunate COVID years passed, and I'm very glad that despite this interruption of our conferences, we met again, and there are so many of you who came. The last 2 years, the conference was in the virtual form. It was different, but I'm very happy that we can meet physically and share experience, because this is all about sharing experience, about the visions and small kind of comments, and this is the most important that you can take away with you. As Mr. Smelík has already said, so we'd like to thank the members of our cluster who released some more money to organize this conference, which every year is free of charge. We'd like to thank NNCO and Digital Innovation Hub in terms of cybersecurity. In terms of the future Industry Cluster 4.0, the same as the Regional Economic Chamber, who is the core organizer, of this meeting are the founder of the International Competence Center for Cybersecurity, which connected the universities in the Czech Republic, Masaryk University, Brno University of Technology, and Czech University of Technology in Prague. We have managed to develop this project into the Digital and Innovation Hub, and under this umbrella we are going to meet in the future. What I'm quite sorry about, though, although there are many of you here, they are out of 17 countries, so unfortunately our Ukrainian friends couldn't come, who were and because they were unable to come at the very last moment. Hopefully next year we will meet again, and so many will come again, and during the year there will be some smaller seminars or events for some smaller ideas that you would be able to use in your business. Thank you for your attention, and now I would like to pass the floor to either the presenter or Mr. Zámečník, who is the deputy mayor. Thank you for these nice words, mainly because there is still the vision where we should go on. I believe that this conference is for you to think about where you would like to go in your business, in your production, and how I hope industry cluster will still be your inspiration and cooperation. We have some room for another introductory word, and I'm very happy that we can welcome here Jan Zámečník, who is the deputy governor of the South Moravian region. So please say a few words to us. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy that I can welcome you here in Brno, in the South Moravian region, also on behalf of the president of the region or governor of the region who couldn't come, unfortunately. I'm happy that this conference is taking place and that Brno Industry 4.0 hub exists. 7 years ago, when it was established, many people didn't know what 4.0 is. Everybody spoke about it, but not many knew what it was about. They wanted to sell something, so they sold 4.0. And I'm glad that this hub was established at that time because it concentrates the experts who understand what the shift in the technology is. And this remote administration of the things which are related to how things can be repaired remotely. So these things are not visible, and it gives space to people who don't do always the right things. But the hub is the opposite. This is the path we should take, and I'm glad that here in Brno we are able to organize this conference, and that Brno and the South Moravian region are leaders not only in the Czech Republic but also in Central Europe, that we have smart people and smart companies here, because for the South Moravian region this is very important. Because small and medium-sized companies have always been a backbone of business, and I am always very happy if the company are evenly scattered all over the regions. And also the new technology advances enable the companies to be established in smaller seats, and it's not that every day we would all go to Brno on the highway. It would be there would be traffic jams on the way there, and out in the afternoon we can work near our seats, near the places where we live, near our families, and this is I'm very glad for this. Thank you once again, and I wish you every success and every success to your business. Thank you for these opening words. And what is it about? Let's see the inspiration, where we should shift Industry 4.0, where we should shift our production, and the production is not having the best time at this moment. We overcame COVID period and new challenges came, and there are many and many more of them. And what is necessary for the production is to get the resilience and sustainability also at this time. I think the next presentation should be the one which is the inspiration, how we should take advantage of the Industry 4.0 towards resilience and sustainability of industry. I'm very glad that the organizers managed to invite an interesting guest who has drawn his inspiration not only from the Czech environment but also from foreign countries. And I would like to welcome our honorable keynote guest who came from BRNO company, which is currently the part of the ABB group. And now I will switch over to English because he is going to speak English. You will have an opportunity to take the headsets and listen to the translation into Czech. And now I would like to welcome the guest.
Right now, and I would like to introduce you the next speaker, which is Joerg Theis from BNR company, which is the part of ABB, and he is responsible for ABB's machine automation division, and he will be speaking about sustainability and all industry trends right now, which is dealing our segment. So I would like to have you on the stage right now.
Dobrý den. It's unfortunately the only word I know in Czech, but I'm very much delighted to be here and also to share some of our experience, what we have made the last 2 years as a BNR during the crisis. Very short introduction. BNR is part of the ABB family, and that's quite important because during the crisis we have realized it's very important that you are part of a much bigger organization, especially when it really comes to organize material, to negotiate with key suppliers. When I speak about Microsoft and challenges with them, it's definitely much easier if you're part of such a huge company in order to negotiate and also to get the support. But it's also important that you really have this network of 20 global divisions in ABB where you really can collaborate and work together even with new technologies like digital, because it means a lot of investment, it needs a lot of brain power in order to make it happen. BNR today is 1 out of 20 divisions, and the very nice part is every division in ABB is self-sustainable. Every division is running its own business on its own behalf, but you are still part of a larger group. So you have the benefit of both. On the one side, being flexible. On the other side, you always have the big mother and the colleagues in place. As a company, and I hope BNR is very well known, we are covering a very large range of products as well as industries. And the key topic during the crisis was that we also realized it's super important that you have a very perfect risk analysis in place when really dealing with chip shortage, when you're dealing with various things. And I will later on give you some examples how we believe that digitalization, Industry 4.0 can really help to overcome. And there's a famous saying in US, I think, never let a good crisis go to waste. So the most important part is not that you're really having the crisis, it's what you are learning during the crisis and what you are changing during the crisis, which makes you a much more better company, but also which makes you much more resilient. Because one thing is very clear today, the last crisis is not the last one, and crises are coming much faster and much harder as we could imagine. As such here, BRNO is really one stone within the ABB family as such, and we are still, you see the orange color, you see the logo, we are still somehow an independent company, and that's also the way how we run it, and that's also the way how we will continue as such. Now, from a perfect mix, what we believe is it's not only about products, about hardware, it's also about the connection between hardware and software. And we see all over the trend that software is becoming much more important in the future. Hardware, you will see more and more a commoditization approach, but software is really where you differentiate somehow in your machine, in your applications. This is where the brain knowledge is, and this is also quite important. And one lesson learned about this one is, despite having a large portfolio, you have to think more and more about how you can make your software more hardware agnostic. How can you embrace more open standards? Because all of this is helping you to make yourself more resilient and also to make yourself more stable in case some of the supply elements will hit you. Now, what is the focus for us? And a key topic for us was really, let's make sure that the next crisis will not harm us as badly as it was happening during the last years. And later on, I will give you some ideas, indications about what it means, about what really the focus areas will be. But then, of course, what we see is there's a major trend on reindustrialization. We see a lot of business, a lot of industries coming back to Europe, going back to US, and all of this is requiring major, major investments. I think all of you are for sure aware about the Inflation Reduction Act of US. Think about it. We speak about an investment of $2 trillion over the next years. It's unbelievable. And all of this will definitely mean that you need a lot of automation, but you also need, I would say, even more automation because there are not so many human people working there. So that is all of this is fueling up that we have to become more efficient, we have to produce faster, and for us the aim is definitely to really become a 2 billion company, which means we are doubling the company within 2 years, which is quite a challenge, but it's definitely the results of what we are seeing now happening, China, US, Europe, reindustrialization. Innovation is always an important topic, and increasing the speed of innovation. You see now artificial intelligence. Have you ever tried this ChatGPT? I think put in, you need a software code for a robot application, and you will find it comes out immediately. So it's very increasing when you see what is really possible now with this new technology. And we have to embrace it. We have to embrace it, and we have to think about how can we, as companies, much easier use it. And there's a clear reason why. In Europe, there's an aging problem. I think we are facing that more and more people going into retirement. Knowledge will disappear, and the young generation is not much used, I would say, about the same way of working. They know very well to go to the internet, to purchase over the internet, but also now to find solutions over the internet. And that is also something what we have to keep in mind when we are continuing to develop our next software versions. I think as BRNO, we were quite a nice company located in Austria with global offices, but we were never really truly international. And that's also something what we see, that we have to start embracing the international setup. Why? The tension between US and China. There will definitely limitations in the future that you need to have a Chinese content. When you speak about US, there's already now visible that you have to have a certain content in US if you really would harvest some of the business there. And on the other side, you also see it's very hard to get people. I think Upper Austria, the area we are in, there's zero unemployment, zero. So I think people can choose every job they want. because the business is running so well. And that is definitely becoming an issue for companies, because they have to decide, either I do much more in automation, or I have to look somewhere else to get the persons on this one. I think we are still believing in partnerships, because especially during a crisis, it's clear about how you really do the business. And doing a transactional business is nice, but having a real relationship-based business, especially during a crisis, is definitely making a difference, because this is really how you stick together. And especially during the crisis, we have taken a lot of efforts to really commit to the partnership as well. Last one, and I'm sure you all heard the term ESG, environmental, social, and governance. And for many companies, especially when they are shareholder treated, those topics are becoming more and more important. I think we see it in machine building, where end customers are much more focusing on what can you do to reduce the energy usage? What can you do to reduce the usage of air, hydraulics? And this is something, a trend, which will definitely come up. It will not go away. And you have to start yourself as a company, and I will later on show also some of the ideas, what we are having. And our aim clearly is to become carbon neutral by 2030. But also to make sure that our sub-suppliers are also following the same trend. So we are also measuring the carbon footprint of our sub-suppliers, so that we at the end of the day can really document that we are really taking this topic quite serious. Let's come to resilience, because that's probably one of the hot topics during the crisis. For us, at the peak of the crisis, we were having 180 components used in more than 10,000 products, which were just not coming, which were just not delivered due to a lot of instances. And the key lessons learned is, it's good to know your first tier supplier. It's even better to know your second tier supplier. But if you really would like to have control, you need to understand the third tier supplier as well. And then you can find out what is the risk you are having in your supply chain. And it's a huge amount of efforts to find out who is the supplier of your supplier of your supplier. But when you do this job once, you will find out all of a sudden the very critical elements. There are today databases which are helping you, but I can only assure you that it's worthwhile for the most critical components you have to really understand the root cause on this one, and to use software helping you to understand, okay, what is this and what is probably the right mitigation action. Mitigation action, either the best one is stocking the material if you get it, but also to have a plan B, a plan C in place. I think during the crisis, we were coming sometimes that we have to do 4 redesigns, because the first one has not worked out with the supplier, the second one not, the third one not. So it's also important that you're becoming very flexible to adjust to different suppliers, and also to have a multi-sourcing strategy. On the other side, we also learned that the chip crisis was mainly caused by Chinese broker. It's not that the material was all of a sudden not really so much there. It is that really a lot of brokers in China has completely taken in, and they have created this severity of the crisis. And now I'm sure every one of you gets the same emails every single day that a broker wants to sell material to you, which was unbelievably expensive in the past. So it's also important that you have a more and more strategic supply chain. In the past, every one of us mostly were purchasing transactional. You have a supplier, you make your contracts, all is fine. But now, I think we have put a dedicated team in place. They are only reading newspapers, they're only scanning the internet, and as soon as you read any type of bad news, you start immediately to react. Immediately, there's a fire of a plant in China. Within 3 hours, we have purchased from broker the material which was affected. Why? Because you need to be fast. As faster you are, as more likely you get material, which gives you time and survive those type of situations. And it's super crucial that you also use as much as possible software, in order to make sure that you have the right balance between the stock, between the risk analysis, and to make sure that you fully understand the critical path in your supply chain. On the production side, doubling a company in 2 years, and I'm sure we are not the only one doing this, is having his own challenges, as you can imagine. You will find bottlenecks which were never there before. You will find a lot of challenges, and you have definitely to use elements like lean production, a lot of software you need to use, consultants you need to use, in order to make sure that you're really boosting your production, that you're really able to cope with the additional order entry. I think we have ordered most of our machines in the midst of the crisis. January last year, we spent quite a large double-digit million invest in new machines just to make sure that now we are getting those machines and we are able now to ramp up the production. But as well as processes and tools is key. I think in the crisis, you mostly see that you have flaws in your processes. You have not used the best tools. You have not the best setup. I think for us, production planning was definitely becoming a major issue, to plan with the scarcity on material on the one side, on the other side to make sure that every customer is getting the complete set of components. And it's not just one component, it always needs the right mix of components. And you definitely need special software for this. And you also realize that the software usage, the way how you design the software is becoming more and more crucial. I think this is definitely one of the game changers you have to do if you definitely also want to become resilient. Is something missing? How you change your whole production scope, how you change the setup, what you produce, how you prioritize the production. We spent here quite a lot of efforts now with consultants and also now using a lot of external software. What is clear, and that's the automation software, my firm belief, the future will be more hardware agnostic. The future will be that you can run your software on different way of hardwares, that you can use your software with different type of protocols, because this is one of the easiest way to make yourself independent from challenges. I mean, we were able during the crisis, within 3 months, to use a third-party PC and to run our software on a third-party PC and to help a customer to have at least 3,000 additional machines going out. A setup which was unthinkable before. But based on the crisis, based on people sitting together, you become all of a sudden super innovative. You will really find a lot of solution, and all of a sudden you have now a solution which is working with some limitations, I admit. But again, this is really also how the crisis have fueled innovation as such. R&D, I think redesign is something every one of us is doing. We are designing different suppliers, different components. We have done more than 100 redesigns over the last 2 years. And we also learned in the redesigns quite a lot of things, how to make them faster, more efficient, and how to really understand the scarcity of certain material. And with the knowledge we have now on redesign, we could have even reduced some of the impact from the crisis, because having a dual sourcing strategy is a given. Having always the latest chip setup used was something we also have to learn, because the old chips are the first one you don't get as such in the market. So those are quite some elements, what we have seen, what really was something we have approached now. And I can admit that now after the crisis, we have completely renewed our portfolio without anyone seeing it, but all the ingredients of the products have been now really state of the art. Last but not least, and it's also very clear, as more products you have, as more complicated it is for you to really undergo those type of challenges, because it's limiting your factory, it's limiting the way you have to do design, and you spend a lot of things. So keep always a pruning approach, a standardization approach in place is definitely helping. Now, the second topic for us, and I'm very proud about this one, is that we really spent a lot of efforts and a lot of money on CO2 reduction. I think first it was the pure electricity. We are now really only using green electricity. It costs a fortune, but if someone asks me, it's really worth it, because you really have to document it to your families, to your customers, that you're really the one driving it. And I'm sure being green will have more and more benefits for every one of us into the future. Because being green is not just buying green energy. It's also about how you start tracking your energy consumption. We built a new campus, and in this campus we have 40,000 users of electricity. And all of them we have connected via one system, and all of it we can track. And by doing so, we were able to reduce our energy consumption by more than 15%. In the evening, we are turning down the temperature, fully automated. So this type of building control, this type of using software to reduce energy is making a major impact. Now, during the shortage of gas, we were even able to reduce our overall amount of gas by 30%, 30, without the people freezing. So that was quite an important one. And as you see, we are now really putting every financial money what we are having in really becoming green. One is to become resilient in case there's no gas, but on the other side really is also to reduce your footprint of CO2. And some of the activities are mentioned here. The big one now, and that's definitely is a bit an issue for our own people, is we have seen that all of a sudden cars are becoming a major, major impact in the footprint. So now we are really working that at least 200 cars will be changed during this year to pure electrical cars. With all the investment we are doing in mounting wall boxes at the homes, mounting electricity loaders at our premises, but just to make sure that we are really starting this. And the feedback from people at the beginning was not so positive, but now everyone is seeing the benefit. And when you self-drive an electrical car, you will also see yourself that there is a lot of fun in the acceleration of an electrical car as such. As I said, 2030 is the target, and we are very much looking forward to achieve this target. Coming to the end of my presentation, key point for me was really for you, never let a good crisis go to waste. Take everything which has hurt you during the crisis and think about how to improve it. Think about 360 degrees. It's processes, it's tools, it's a lot of collaboration. We got a lot of input from our customers. Some of the customers gave us enormously guidance on where to buy, what to check, where to take care. I think that has really helped us to improve the situation, to escalate, to get more chips, to get more material, and really make sure that you're very much following up structurally on those type of elements, because I am sure it is not the only crisis we will see in the future. And the second one, take really ESG very important. It will be a key differentiation for companies if you take it seriously and if you really drive it. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We will switch to the Czech right now. If there will be any question, I ask audience to catch you in the lobby. The time is precious.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. My přepneme zpátky do českého jazyka. Já moc děkuji za
So we will switch over to Czech. Thank you for this interesting presentation. If you have any questions, unfortunately, we are very busy today, so there will be not much space for the questions, but you will be able to ask these questions in person, so you take advantage of this networking here. I think this presentation has outlined the agenda of this program, and we have the chairs ready here, and we will continue by opening a discussion panel, where we will discuss the usage or exploitation of the crisis for our benefit. As to the crisis, recently I've heard an idea that the advantage of recent years is that there was only a limited number of global threats, and we have experienced them almost all. So there is not much that could surprise us. So let us go back to the positive spirit of this conference. And now I would like to introduce the panel, the panelists. We will have to wait for it. You have to unfortunately wait for a bit before we reorganize it, and let us now continue. So welcome back. We are still at the conference BRNO Industry 4.0. We have got to the program of the first panel, which is, and the topic is Industry 4.0 at the time of unexpected challenges. And I'm very happy that I have our guests here, Karel Bílek from B&R company. I'd like to welcome Tomáš Halva from Beckhoff Automation. And we also have the representative of Siemens, František Podzimek, and also the representative of Industry Cluster 4.0, Tomáš Kubala. Good morning. Gentlemen, we've heard beautiful words of the keynote presentation. But before we get there, when I looked at the discussion panel, I was quite kind of threatened that I have not moderated a discussion with three people whose companies are direct competitors. So this will be interesting. So I'm quite interested how you got here. Thank you for...
I was quite afraid, but when I approached all of them, they told me, yes, we know each other. We have known each other for years. We get on well, so why not? This is quite an interesting challenge. So I think that this is what clusters or any meetings are about, because it wasn't a question of months, but it was a question of years. When we got to know each other in the cluster, we blunted the edges, and we found out that if we start cooperating in some areas, we can really move forward rather than if we do on our own. If you want to run fast, run alone. If you want to run to a great distance, run in a group. That's how it works. So let's look at the Industry 4.0. So Industry 4.0, that's what we are going to discuss. So gentlemen, very often I hear from the market that Industry 4.0 it has been overcome, that it's not a topic, that there are no innovations to be found. And many times we hear that Industry 4.0 is just a marketing label and no one is really interested. So is Industry 4.0 a topic that has been overcome in your company? František can be the first to speak. So I will start. Well, what we understand, we are referring to the fourth industrial revolution. So these are some changes that are taking place. And I believe that we are just at the very start of the fourth industrial revolution. A few years ago when we started, and we were thinking about what changes it's going to bring, what technologies are behind that, areas that we were considering, we were thinking about mathematical systems, cyber systems, where all the production technologies have their digital twins. are interconnected. So these are systems that can optimize themselves. They send alerts saying that some changes must be made, so they are like self-optimizing systems. We're talking about a massive onset of a number of technologies, 3D printing, AI. All these things are gradually appearing in the production. These technologies are becoming more and more interconnected, but we have not really exhausted their full potential. So I think that we are at the start. What I see is that the onset of these technologies is accelerating, and what is also being accelerated is the interconnection. So I believe that we have a lot to go through in the future. Karel, you have the mic in your hand, so BNR, what do you understand as Industry 4.0 now? Well, maybe I will come back to the question you started with, whether it's a marketing label or how we see that. Many of you may remember the joke, you come home, you open the fridge, and you are afraid that there will be Industry 4.0 jumping out. So this is a paraphrase of an old joke. So maybe the term is becoming obsolete, but what Mr. Podzimek said, he spoke about the fourth industrial revolution, and the fourth industrial revolution was enabled by the dramatic development of these technologies. And I believe that this is here with us, and I fully agree that we are still at the very start. A number of these technologies, as they are appearing in the practical life, they are accelerating the follow-up steps. They inspire in what we should do next, how to develop it, and a number of things. We are not even able to see the horizon. So I believe that this is a process, and I don't think at all we are not at the end, we are just at the start. Tomáš Halva, are you going to share this opinion of Industry 4.0, or do you have a different view? It should be Industry 5.0, 6.0. Well, in fact, from my point of view, it's not important whether it's 4.0, 4.8, or 8.0. It's all about the topic. And from my point of view, if I look at the production plant, I would say that this is about higher flexibility. It is about making the production faster, more convenient, making the production a better process. So I tend to agree that we are at the start, or maybe we have started up a number of things. A number of things have been done, but I definitely do not think that this is a revolution like saying we made a big boom and it's done in a year's time. So I would say that this is something that is going to take a number of years, because this generates more and more opportunities that we need to implement, and it's all about the long-term cooperation. This is how I see it. Gentlemen, thank you. So when we talk about Industry 4.0, we have a number of subtopics. So in the ideal case, it should be taken as a complex topic, but it's not how the market works. So Industry 4.0 is very often equaled with digitalization. So if we stick to digitalization, which is the main driver of industrial changes, recently I heard an interesting idea that as regards digitalization, we cannot really speak about competitive advantage. It's not a competitive advantage anymore because it's a must. Do you agree with the statement saying that digitalization is a must? It's too late to start with digitalization now because all the companies should have been dealing with that for some time. So how do you view this? Well, I'm holding the mic, so maybe a short comment. Digitalization, what is digitalization? At what level? So this is a question that I ask myself, because everyone thinks about digitalization, because now the whole world is digital. So we should look at the condition of the production of the plant, of the technologies, and where we can shift it forward. I don't really see the topic of whether it should be digitalized or not. It goes without saying there is no other way to go. Tomáš, so you also go for digitalization? Well, I'm not going to send an email. The question is whether it's too late or too early for digitalization. Yes, to a certain extent it's late, because when I left the production plant and started working in the cluster, everyone kept asking what 4.0 is. Now the word has been well established, but as regards industrial plants, they did not really have such well-functioning processes that could be digitalizable, and the companies end up in a situation that in the past they wanted to digitalize and robotize. They often combine it in order to increase the efficiency, but now they are exposed to the need to go digital, because the experienced manpower is leaving and they need to ensure the continuity of business. So the simple answer is yes, it's 1 minute to 12, or maybe it's too late to start digitalization. Well, maybe I will expand the question a bit, and I will react by saying that it might be a way to keep the know-how and find a replacement for the departing experience. So do you understand how it changes with the changing form? Because we are simplifying the processes. We want to keep the historic experience thanks to these tools. Karel Bílek. So you expected to get this question? Well, I keep thinking about the original question, whether it's a competitive advantage. So I would like to comment on this, because it's a pity when you mix up digitalization with data collection. By collecting data, this doesn't give you any competitive edge. You get an advantage if you are able to extract some knowledge from the data, and based on the knowledge, you can change your behavior. In a better case, you can come up with some new business model, or let's say you can take a step ahead. And this is what can give you the competitive advantage. And of course, if the processes are well described, if the processes have some footprint, and it brings me to the second part of your question, then I'm convinced that, of course, such documented things, well-described things, can contribute to retaining the know-how and keeping the know-how accessible for the years to come. And of course, then we can think about other things that can appear later, but I think we'll talk about it later. So these are questions of AI and things like that. I would like to ask František Podzimek to comment on these topics. We've heard that digitalization and data collection is not enough. So do the businesses manage to upscale the digitalization to extract information, and once they have the information, do they really use it the way they should be used? Well, if we look at the first question, digitalization would stop being a competitive advantage if all the companies were fully digitalized. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Digitalization can be done well in a systematic way with a long-term vision. You can head somewhere, you can build on foundations, have some uniform standards. You can also do it without any vision, ad hoc, using some island solutions that are not connected, interconnected, and then the results are different. But definitely, digitalization, if it's taken the right way, it's a great competitive advantage for the company. As regards the knowledge and work with data, the companies have to build some digital backbone. They need to collect and analyze data, not only as machine data, but also all kinds of design data, requirements from the customers, information about how the products behave in the real world, and all the data must be accessible in a single point, and the software must make it possible to enable simple processing and retrieval of data, so that all the operations are related to someone looking for information, getting the right information, exchanges information. This should be really as automatic and simple as possible using these systems. So from what we've heard, it seems that digitalization is really a must, and this is a way to go for the companies. And still, now we are facing some other issues. We have a high inflation rate, expensive loans. Is there a risk that the businesses will abandon the journey because they have to face OPEX, high OPEX, and they will stop investing in this infrastructure? Do you think that there is a risk of this in the Czech Republic? Maybe we could take a vote. Who is afraid? Well, it may happen in some of the businesses. I hope it's just a short-term problem, because if it's going to be a long-term problem, then the companies will miss the train, because we are talking about the global market. And when we heard in the initial presentation about the competition of the superpowers, China, the USA, of course, I would also add, I hope the EU. I hope this is also one of the superpowers. And as regards this market, you cannot really lag behind. So the investments are really necessary. Yes, it can happen that now, at the given moment, for 1 year, for one period, this will be suspended, but you cannot really miss the train. So there is no other way to get a competitive advantage. The money you earn must be reinvested. You have to move on. So we've heard an idea of some new business models. So what springs to mind is a comparison. So if you look at automotive, if you have a car, it tells you, well, I need to be serviced, I need to be brought to the garage so that the service technician can earn some money. And thanks to this model, we have a number of companies following this model, not only in the automotive, but in other areas as well. So again, this is all about the data collection. So yes, we should collect the data, but we have to be able to use the data to help us in the business. And if they help us in the business, then they can generate money that we can reinvest. So this is like a circle I can see. Okay, thank you. You meet in the cluster. That's the main point, networking, exchange of experience. What is the general mood in the cluster in terms of these investment topics? Can you see better, brighter future, or do you think there is a risk of losing the competitive advantage for these fears and instability of the market?
If I look at the statistics, so I must say that our cluster is not a good reference sample, because it collects or it gathers companies which supply to Industry 4.0, or they are enlightened and they try to develop themselves in this area. An example is that when the first challenges came from NTO to digitalization of small and medium-sized companies, so everybody who managed to get one were applied, and they succeeded, and they considered this topic as important. So I have enlightened companies in the cluster. If we look at the mood, so when COVID came and it was the first crisis out of several in the short period of time, the companies started to divide into several groups, one which had a great decline of sales and fought for their survival, and those who were preparing for the period after the crisis. They were investing, they were buying new technology, they were exposed to the crisis, and they wanted to respond to it. They just managed to do a lot of things from their homes which they had never dreamt of before. So the situation is that those companies who are not 100% relying on their customers, they just keep developing and investing. But be careful, because I can buy technology, I can read some knowledge and information, but the issue is to implement it, because I need to convince people and I need to know where to go. I'd like to take advantage of the fact that the gentlemen, although they sit on the Czech head offices of their companies, so they definitely have information from their companies abroad. So is it possible that we could lose competitiveness, because the Czech Republic is really being really striking in terms of the inflation problems and loans, and is this that we could stop being globally competitive, or is it that we are going in the right direction and we can ignore this threat? I would like to get back to the previous question. I wouldn't wish this to be heard and understood as any advice. You mentioned that the Czech Republic is kind of striking. Of course, it is also striking in the energy prices. And at the moment when there are companies which are dependent on the energies and the price of energy grew 5 times. So this is so drastic that these companies are really striving for survival from one day to another. And if you tell them, please employ or use digitalization now, or do digitalize now, so it is not a good advice at this very moment. Of course, there is a kind of influence of this, but the question is whether the supplier system integrators and those who implement this solution, maybe they could open the door and be helpful. For example, if a small note could be implemented so that the company knows that it is meaningful, and they could link to it and they could develop it. So maybe we should not leave the companies in that alone. And maybe if there is a loss of competitiveness from the point of view of Europe or from the global point of view, so of course we do face these risks, but it is very much about the starting line, about the starting situation of the companies, because there are companies which benefited from the relatively lower costs of the Czech Republic labor, and this advantage has come to an end. And it is quite obvious that the only way, the only possibility is to have an innovative chip approach and to find the solution, to find new operating models which are based on the fact that I come with something else and I surprise the market with something new. So we should not be relying on cheap labor cost because the crisis has shown quite clearly that this is not the path that we can build on. I'd like to ask František Podzimek for his reaction. And it's been said that the reason why investments are put elsewhere is the price of energy. And Siemens also looked at the energy prices. And you also see the digitalization as one of the ways how to reduce the energy demand of the industry. So it's been said that we should take every crisis as an opportunity. I would really support this if somebody is really struggling to face the high prices to survive because of the high prices of energy, so it is those probably don't hear about it, but maybe what benefit can digitalization bring to them? The crisis is very sharp, but will be relatively short. Digitalization is a process, a long-term process. And within digitalization, we are not only talking about the buying of the technology, hardware and software. It is not only about the technology, but about the processes as well. If the companies are in a more difficult period, so they can work on the professional aspects of digitalization, they can create their systems, they can create the new version or digitalization roadmaps, they can prepare tenders or tendering procedures. So this is what they can do without major investments, and the company can invest into a platform which it can start utilizing internally, because software is bought, then it takes some time before it is integrated, before the processes are set. But if we look at the COVID crisis, it lasted 2 years, but if you compare it to the decision to buy software, to integrate it and to start using it, so it is a much longer period. So this you can work with, and a lot of public funds can be used, investments. This is about the digitizing of energy savings after COVID. So this is also available, and this is for the companies which have the long-term vision and strategy. If we look at digitizing as a tool for reducing the digital demand of the production, so this is definitely it. So the companies should acquire transparency about how much, what media they use, how much money it costs, and start looking at whether the energy is not wasted if it is efficiently used. The next level is the change of the technology, the design of the products, so that they are produced in a more environmentally friendly way and use less energy. I'd like to add to it that often for big companies which have not reached the digitalization support, so there is an alternative for the support for energy savings. In terms of energy savings, I don't think that here there is somebody who hasn't thought about this topic. All of us think about it, and if it was easy, we would probably manage it. It is not easy, because I think that most of you have made some basic steps, but then it is about some small steps, about searching for smaller savings at different places, and maybe here we could refer this to the afternoon section. Our colleague Blažek at 2 p.m. will show you some tips. and tips and tricks how we could save money, for example, by using software or using efficient processors, or in what way we could save more of compressed air, a little bit more. And there are some tips and tricks we are going to show you in the afternoon. When I get back to the economic indicators, I think that if we invest into the technology, I will give you two figures, inflation, and we have some 17.5%, which is similar to the surrounding countries, but in Germany they have 9. So this will be a key factor about thinking about how and where the investments will go, where your product will go, and this is important. Another important thing is I would probably look at unemployment, because unemployment seems to be relatively low. I think it's some 3.7, 3.9. But where should we find new people who will then process this, who will implement these changes we are mentioning here? So this is quite problematic because the labor market is quite, it doesn't offer a top quality force. Thank you for these comments, and it is good to point out also that the afternoon panels will contain a lot of interesting information. But we are now here, and I would like to ask you, gentlemen, to be specific here as well. Please choose any technology, because we come to the conferences to get some inspiration, so that we can find something that we can install tomorrow in our factory and benefit from it. So please, can you mention a technology which, in your opinion, is so interesting that you will speak about it as about the potential investment, even though it would be accompanied by a more expensive loan or some more investments? What are the technologies, interesting technologies for tomorrow? So number one, it is the digital twin, definitely. One example regarding the energy, we have a partner who has used our simulation process any time when he's designing a new line for a customer. And within simulation, so he developed a module by which he is able to automate the paths and the speed of the movement of the robots in such a way that it minimizes the energy consumption. So this is quite a current example, and the technology helps optimizing the production line to get better parameters, but many customers also exist, also use it for automation of their warehouses. The digital twin is able to optimize internal logistics. So in my opinion, digital twin is the technology which should penetrate entire industry. If Tomáš Halva came to the factory and said, this is the topic you should look at, so what would it be? Depends on the type of the factory, but in terms of the Beckhoff solution, we have an interesting solution for the transport and transport systems. We have the systems which are really revolutionary, whether it is extended transport system or whether it is the Explanar, which is able to move the products on a magnetic cushion using the magnetic levitation. And you can look at both these technologies in the adjacent room. We have them physically ready there.
From my point of view, these are definitely interesting technologies. This is not only about being an innovation, but we have implemented this even in the Czech Republic. We have one application that I can mention, Optic Solutions. This is a company that has been developing test applications, camera applications with us, and the entire process can be sped up 3 times thanks to the magnetic levitation. So I would invite you to have a look at this technology. Well, I will follow up on what has been said, and maybe we should somehow move down. Instead of talking about the global business, we should speak about the production line and machines. Of course, there is lots of new things in the mechatronic elements, and I believe that their arrival is to a certain extent revolutionary. And in fact, you can very well see it if you look at e-mobility, where the powertrain is a lot easier to implement and maintain compared to the complex gearboxes and car engines. So the mechatronic elements and the design of the lines and the design of the machines, and they very much simplify this. And there are already examples of companies, of businesses around the world, like a labeling machine produced in a conventional way. And if you use these advanced transport systems and other mechatronic elements, if you make a synchronization with robots, tripods, and so on, the design is much more simple, and the machine itself is much more flexible in terms of what end products it can process and how fast it can be readjusted from one product to another. So I think that this is a trend towards customization of the product, lower production series. So I believe that this is about the mechanical automation where we perceive it very strongly. We speak about adaptive machines that are able to get adjusted to all kinds of products and address things that were not fully known when the machine was put into production. So I believe that this is a very strong trend. And then I would also like to highlight another thing, because we see the eye in the logo of the conference, and it's also related to mechanical vision. And I believe that what is on the rise are implementations and technologies where this kind of vision will enter the functional safety. And we should simplify the design of the machines and improve their flexibility and ensure higher flexibility so that the operators do not have difficult marginal conditions, meaning you cannot touch this, you cannot touch that, so that it's safe for the operators. So this may be another trend that will show up in the future. Well, I thought that thanks to the media, you will all say that it's all about artificial intelligence. So, of course, I felt the potential of artificial intelligence, but how does it work with the artificial intelligence? Because now, is it only about the artificial intelligence in the future? Because it's been something we have been talking about for years, but I don't really get real examples of practical applications. So am I looking in the wrong way? Is it that the artificial intelligence is a potential for the future in your industries? Well, from my point of view, there is a huge potential. This is also demonstrated by the fact that Beckhoff has one of the components in its standard software, which is a standard package which can process neural networks and can incorporate artificial intelligence in the production technology. Well, definitely this is a future trend. On the other hand, if you look deeper into the principles of how the artificial intelligence operates, well, to me, I have a small question mark, meaning that the production must be fully precise, accurate, and the reliability is highly important. So from this point of view, I believe that artificial intelligence is always the second best solution that we should choose. The first solution is the discrete standard approach, the classic conventional logics and automation. And wherever this approach fails, either due to the complexity of the assignment, it's like it's not in human power to describe it, or if it's due to the fact that we don't have enough data, then of course there is space for artificial intelligence to be deployed. That's where it's quite relevant, and I can say that we already have some very interesting examples from practice, and this is really the future trend, but based on what I've said before with the small question mark.
Oranžová umělá inteligence.
So artificial intelligence,
Oranžovo-červená.
orange red. Well, I fully agree that the artificial intelligence in industry already exists in a number of applications. It is to a certain extent the future. And I would give you two examples. One example is related to the maintenance. There are systems in place that can use a model and they can describe behavior of an element, in automation element. And this is firmly programmed. So, if you look at the machines and the production lines, there is something else happening. And once you implement an algorithm in the operation, and the algorithm makes the model more accurate, more precise, it reflects the real data better, the real data in the process. And as a result, the predictive maintenance, which is related to this, can be very accurate and very safe. So I guess that these softwares and algorithms in the future are the dream of each production manager, because you will be on the safe side that there will not be some unpredictable event taking place, no breakdown taking place, and that the production plant will be up and running. So this is one of the examples. And the second example, that's what we've heard as well. We have problems with experts, we have problems with manpower and knowledge. And we came across this issue in one application. It was more about diagnostics, very much about diagnostics, and the people who understand this topic are taken like shamans, because they find things that a normal human being doesn't understand. And in cooperation with one company, we collected the data in the process, and we collected them, and gave it to these people. They had no idea what the process was about physically, but they were able to find anomalies in the data, breakdowns, intrusions, and highlight these. So this clearly shows another thing, which is very important. Well, the new technologies are not going to save you. We really have to keep our common sense, and we should not neglect what has been working. But we should really face what's coming, and we should take the good from both worlds and transform it into higher quality. So it's not that what is new is so revolutionary that you will discard the old ones. So this clearly shows that if you combine these things, you can really get further on. Well, I would say that industry somehow lags behind. You can really do amazing things, but you need to have the data. And as regards industries, we know that you have machines in the production plants from all kinds of manufacturers, all kinds of ages, and getting the data can be quite complicated. So if we want to make full potential of using machine learning or data collection, first you need to have the data, you need to have standards, and you need to have tools to collect the data from the shop floor and connect it with data from other systems, ERP and other systems available in the businesses. So this is something where we have really moved forward, and we can offer a number of solutions to the businesses, even if they have these difficulties extracting the data, and we can establish a common ground for engineers to start developing models. Well, some examples of using AI in combination with the digital twin technology. You can have some lean engineers who help you create a new layout and simulate a new layout of your shop floor. And you can also have engineers who use some additional models that help generate variants of the layout in a machine way. And we have a number of examples showing that this method, where the lean engineer uses the AI-based systems, it can be 10 up to 15% higher efficiency and savings. So we've heard about ChatGPT. We have tried ChatGPT to be established. We wanted to get a model in our tool to generate a digital twin of the production, and it can do it. So the AI, if you give it instructions, it can develop some models. Of course, at the beginning, it will be with errors. You will have to interfere, but later it will be very accurate models, and it will be cheap. It will generate programs, and these systems can generate text. They can write down your CV, they can answer simple questions, and at a certain stage they can also write functional program and programs that will be well functioning with just a small share of corrections. Also in the Czech Republic, we start having systems that use machine learning or machine vision concerning detection or quality control in the production line. Predictive maintenance, that's what we've heard about, and I'm going to talk about it later. So there is definitely a huge room for this. And maybe another topic, the industry has a number of not only machine data, but data in the documentation. So it can also be used to classify documentation, to search in documentation, to detect errors in the documentation. So you have a number of areas where now it's a question of hours of your time, of qualified work, engineers' work, who could do something else. So with these systems, you can get a fast response, and this is something that the industry will make major investments in. and profit from in the future. Well, thank you. I've heard that the room for AI is huge. We don't have so much space for our discussion, so we are slowly coming to the end, and some interesting topics will have to be skipped. So I will not ask you whether automation as a result of inflation is too expensive and the SMEs cannot afford it. So we will skip this topic.
Quite to the contrary, you were asked to speak about the digitalization solutions, but I would like to ask you in the end to sell a little bit, because the best-selling tool is a story. And I would like to ask you, please, can you recall a story of your customer where the technology was the real game changer, when they shifted automation to a different level, and then we don't have to think about the automation and its benefit because it would generate much more. So if you can tell a short story to our audience. So our story is here from the north of Bohemia, of the part of the country of Czech Republic. One company which tests balls in the ball bearings. It is quite a common thing, but when we looked at this technology more, so we found out what could be implemented there from the new technology. And the story should be short, so I'll be brief. When we managed, after some way, to achieve the condition that we were finished and we were ready, so the machine uses eddy currents, and it also uses vibrations, and it also uses laser sensors. So there are three completely different technologies which are used for checking quality of balls in the ball bearings, whether it is the surface properties or subsurface properties. Also, neuron networks are used to evaluate the testing, and at the same time we were able to simplify the switchboard of this customer. We were able to remove one industrial PC. We put everything into one box, let's say. And the customer is happy because he has a simple technology. He can use the most modern things which exist, and also it is in terms of finances, it is quite interesting because he used a small amount of components. So this is our story. Can I ask for BNR and their changes in the company? It went throughout the discussion. Industry 4.0 is not a thing that you would buy as a box because it is quite a complex and comprehensive process, and it is a long period action, and you have to develop this solution in the long term. And I'm quite fascinated about the fact that if we take partial data and partial progress, which can generate other chances and other opportunities, which will then shift you forward. And this is what this story will be about. It is from our production. It mainly concerns the manufacturer of the lines, which supplied specialized lines into our production. Our systems are produced on a robotized line, and when the first line was being commissioned, so it took 12 months before it went to a full operation. But when the company was implementing the second line, so the commissioning process only took 6 months. So you'll say, okay, so they had already acquired experience with the first line, so they just copied this experience. But it is not true, because they are both robotic lines, but their structure is totally different, and the newer one is much more complex. There are different mechanics of the robots, etc. So it was not only about the experience. The major difference was that in the second line, at the time of the implementation of the line, there had been a system which had collected data from the line. So all the steps of tuning and fine-tuning were not based only on the feelings of the programmers, but the decisions were made based on specific data. Just for example, this error caused this length of idle time, etc. And thanks to this data collection, it was possible to shorten the commissioning of the line. And a beautiful idea which came after this, the manufacturer said, this is a great experience for us if we implement such lines, so it's really worth it for us to implement a data collection system, even if we had to pay it ourselves, because we eliminate major risks by this, and this is what every manufacturer of one-purpose or single-purpose machines has to face, that something will not be successful, that they will have to pay the penalty. And this risk can be very nicely eliminated. And if this person is smart, so he or she is going to be able to sell the system of data collection from the line to the final customer. It is a win-win situation, because the final customer can acquire this data collection system on top of the product. And this is an example how one step generates other steps and moves the whole solution forward. I'll just say that we don't expect you to sell us a box of Industry 4.0. I would perhaps prefer the cloud solution, but of course the digitalization brings about a lot of benefits, and I believe that Tomáš Halva also has, or František Podzimek will have, or I will ask the gentleman here about the experiences. So now, Mr. Podzimek, the floor is yours. We spoke a lot about the crisis and reactions to the crisis today, and I would like to get back to the COVID crisis. You know that there was a global race to develop the vaccine as soon as possible against COVID, and it was not only about the development of the vaccine, but the production of the vaccine with the required quality. We, as Siemens, we started cooperation with BioNTech, and using digitalization, advanced automation, and with the support of our experts, we help them support production and commission quickly the production of mRNA vaccines in Germany. This process would have normally lasted 1 year. Here we managed to do it in several months when the production had already been placed. And what we implemented with BioNTech was the implementation of the system it was the mass execution pharma. It was for the production execution. By this we controlled production doses. We set up the system of data collection from the paper documentation and the whole system in order for us to be able to to do it very efficiently and within a very short period of time. So the digitalization is definitely a tool which enables us to react faster to the crisis, to develop the new types of the products in the pharmaceutical or different industries. We are not talking about the crisis and about the structural changes which are going to be implemented in the Czech Republic. The automotive industry will also have to go through the changes, and these are all structural changes which are not a crisis, but we need to react to them as well. And these digitalization tools enable the companies to face these challenges in a better way. Now about Tomáš Kubala's stories. He is the chief of Industry Cluster 4.0, and I am not going to bring any examples because I would speak for somebody else, but the previous conferences were built on the implementation of different technologies into the members of the clusters companies. But what I would like to take as a lesson from this, number one, is the fact that next conference will have a special section about the artificial intelligence and technology, which changes the world. And the second is that we have not presented the stories for the mass or serial production, or even not the customization of the products, but for example, the building the line, the commissioning of the line, the enabling the line to operate, and the data collection systems. And this is where we get to this area. And if we look at digitalization and standardization and the issues in the supplier chains, in order for us to be able to substitute the suppliers in order to maintain the customers and maintain the technology. So this is what we should focus on, because this is the starting point. So Tomáš Kubala said that he got to the beginning of the discussion, but we unfortunately got to the end of the discussion, and I would like to thank Tomáš Kubala as well as other panelists for their ideas. I'd like to thank Karel Bílek for BNR Automatizace and Tomáš Halva, Tomáš Kubala, František, Podzimek. Please applaud to them. I think these ideas are worth it. Thank you. I'd like to thank Tomáš Halva from Beckhoff Automation. And last not least to František Podzimek from Siemens. I'd like to thank you for your attention. We are just going to close the first section, and we will have a break now. Unfortunately, we have very little time even for the break, and at 11 we are going to go into another story where digitalization was the mover of the changes in the Continental company in Brandýs nad Hlavem. So please be back at 11 o'clock and you can hear the next interesting story. Thank you.